babies.
Richard?
Raymond?
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Ladies.
William?
I don't know if Zoom,
He's here.
it says he's here.
Yeah. I hear you knocking, but I can't come in. Woo! Little Richard. R.I.P. R.I.P.
So the guy played did he play a piano?
Fuck yeah, man. Come on.
Did he play the piano? Is that what you just said?
How am I the bottom of the totem pole is dumb?
Little
I don't know.
Richard, did he play the piano? Fuck you, Bill.
It's not my...
Get cultured, Bill, you fucking idiot.
Oh, God, I just...
I hear you knocking, but you can't move.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
You're a genius. I don't care what Bill says about you. You're a fucking genius.
I never said you were dumb.
Smartest man alive. That's a Happy Gilmore movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Billy.
Yeah, Billy Madison.
I'm the smartest man alive. Bob Socci.
Bob Socci,
Hey,
nice to see you.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm
Look at
doing
that.
great, thanks.
Look at that library.
Yeah, really excellent connection, too. Well done.
I hope it stays that way.
Great.
You can hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
You're a radio guy. All right, well, welcome to the Simple Minds Sports Show. Special edition here. With us today is Bob Socci, the voice of the New England Patriots. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for joining us.
Richard, great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kick it over to Ray to kind of kick things off, and we'll have some fun.
Awesome. So taking over for the legend, Gil Santos, in 2013. What was your approach to fill his shoes?
You know, it's funny. Gil had listened to some of my work a few years before that, and he was very complimentary. He had some criticisms, some very valid criticisms that I took to heart. So there had been some interaction with him. And then when I got the job, I called him, or he called me, I think, right before the first preseason game against Philadelphia. And he gave me a great piece of advice. He said, look, he said, you know, go in, do it your way, be yourself. Don't try to be like me. And he said, just remember, there will be people who don't like the way you do it because it's not the way I did it. But don't forget, there will be people who like the way you do it because it's not the way I did it. And then the only other advice he gave me, he said, tell Zolak to shut up.
So we're still working on that one then, yeah?
Yeah. So, you know, the first interaction with him, and it was while I was calling Navy games, and it was shortly after my wife and I had moved to the Boston area while I was still working at the Naval Academy. My wife is from the Boston area, and we got engaged and got married here locally in Milton. And we moved, and I was commuting back and forth trying to knock on doors at the same time. So I was calling Navy football and doing college basketball, mostly in the Mid-Atlantic. And at the same time, reaching out to people locally here. And it was about the time the Sports Hub launched. So I asked Gil to listen to a CD of my football work. And the fact that he liked enough of it to, number one, make me feel good about myself, also gave me confidence a few years later when I was hired by 98.5 that, you know, I could do this because it had the seal of approval from the greatest ever. I mean, he is still the voice of the Hall of Famer. My first experience really around the Patriots that summer was the night of the Hall of Fame ceremony. So nobody really knows who I am, and I'm attending the Hall of Fame ceremony, and I'm looking up on stage, and there's Gil Santos in the red jacket going in as one of the two Hall of Famers for the Patriots, not as a broadcaster, but as a Hall of Fame contributor.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing, pretty daunting.
Was football always the way you wanted to go for broadcasting? Because I know you played baseball in high school, and you did Paw Sox games in the World Series year of 2013. Was it always football?
Yeah, well, you know, I always thought baseball was probably my best sport. It was certainly the sport I played the best. I played high school baseball for a really good program, one of the largest schools in the middle of New York State. We were state champion my senior year, and I tried to play the fall of my freshman year of college. But I started working in pro baseball about that time too. I had an internship with the Cincinnati Reds, and then I got into broadcasting on the minor league baseball path, and made a lot of contacts in that field and started to move up in baseball. And I always thought at that point in time that baseball would be my road to the so-called big leagues. And I thought I was going to get there back in the early to mid 2000s, around 2004, 2005. I got a sniff with a big league team and it didn't come to fruition. And by that time I had started calling Navy football, and I really fell in love with that. And I decided, in particular, after I didn't get to the majors right away while I was broadcasting at the AAA level, I was in Albuquerque in the Pacific Coast League.
Isotopes.
The Isotopes, yes, sir. The voice of the Topes. They would play at a beautiful stadium. The players called it the Lab. And so they somewhat, tongue-in-cheek, I should say, referred to the fans, especially some of the more boisterous fans, as the Lab Rats. So
Bill gets it.
yeah,
I get it.
Bill's a fake scientist, but he's also a baseball weird fact savant. So
I love it. I love
baseball.
You should work for the Isotopes, Bill.
You should go to an Isotopes game, like a real Isotopes game, not the Springfield Isotopes.
Not allowed to cross state lines.
Well, I didn't know I'd be interacting with a fugitive here.
Allegedly.
No, I'm not going to blow your cover here.
I do want to get out there. I mean, I like minor league. I believe it or not, I do like minor league baseball games.
Yeah.
I think it's the atmosphere is more like fan friendly, and I like to see the young prospects. I live up here in New Hampshire, Manchester, so I try to, every time Portland's up here, I try to jump on it for the Red Sox. So I mean, I think it's a little more fun, and beers are a little bit cheaper sometimes in minor leagues. We got a baseball bat beer now over here. Perfect.
Yeah. You don't have Thirsty Thursday at Fenway Park.
That's right. I was just there a few weeks ago. It cost me like $100 in drinking. Yeah, this is ridiculous.
You can have a lot more to drink for a lot less than in a lot of minor league cities.
And I can Uber home.
You can Uber home, exactly.
Fisher Cat alum right here. I was pouring beers in college. Bob,
that was the path I started on, and then it just turned out that the door opened in football.
How much did you do for your voice to get to did you actually, I've always wanted to ask this to announcers. I'm a music guy, vocal guy, so it's struck a chord with me. Did you sit down and kind of craft your voice and your cadence, or was it just, were you talking like this as a 6-year-old in elementary school?
It's funny you say. I imitated the broadcasters that I listened to when I started calling games initially, especially in baseball. I would imitate the broadcasters that I grew up with. I was a Mets fan initially, and Bob Murphy was the voice of the sorry. I also liked Ned Martin. I used to watch a lot of Ned Martin and eventually Sean McDonough on TV 38 as well. So I love McDonough. Kind of became my American League team, but the Mets were my first love. And Bob Murphy was, I believe, from Oklahoma. And you can imagine this kid from Central New York trying to talk with the twang, saying swing like Bob Murphy used to, and really had this affected voice. And it took me a while to find my own voice, so to speak. I never took voice lessons until very late in my career, and I regret it now that I didn't. You have great pipes, by the way, Richard.
Oh, thanks.
But
it's mostly the equipment.
It's great, and I never thought about it. I always thought I had an adequate voice. I knew I didn't have the voice of someone like Gil, but I thought it was adequate. I thought I called a good game, and that was what was important. As long as you sounded good and you could describe the action and tell stories and be well prepared, that's all it took to be a good broadcaster. And I was knocking on doors, as I said. It was about that time when I was looking for a job locally. We're still doing games in the Mid-Atlantic, and I actually reached out to an agent. I thought, well, maybe I need to get an agent to try to get some more television work. Maybe, my path should be doing regional sports television, try to get a job with one of those regional networks like Nesson or at that point, Comcast New England. And I actually got turned down. This was one of the better agents in the business. And he was one of the few who actually took time to talk to me. He mentioned that he thought my voice was too nasally, which I did recognize, particularly, really showed itself in baseball in particular. But he also said, look, you're good. I would take you if you were younger, but I don't think that I can market you, or the networks that I work with would be interested in somebody of your age.
Yeah.
because it's not like they look at you as somebody who's young and that we could work the voice issue.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he recommended a couple of books, and then he also said, "Look, you're in Boston. There have to be 1 million voice coaches there." He said, "Nobody in the business, nobody ever thinks about the instrument they use."
Mhm.
And I finally tried. Like I've talked to a lot of different broadcasters. Some of the guys who are the most successful and have the best pipes, and they don't really think about their voice that much.
Right.
They just do it.
Yeah.
And I spent a couple of lessons with an opera singer from Cambridge. Just did a Google search, found somebody who moonlighted doing voice lessons, and it did help me a lot.
Yeah.
And I started broadcasting Navy with some of the techniques that he taught me. And the other part of that too is that I had also sent some tapes or CDs at the time around to some people with some national radio networks. And one of them told me he thought I had a college football sound, but I didn't have an NFL sound. And I started to think, I have no idea.
What's the difference?
Really. I don't know. Good question. I don't know. Maybe
Speaking
I was doing
of-
a better imitation of a Homer college football announcer from the SEC than down the middle NFL announcer at the network.
You gotta put on some twang and some
a little fumble or whatever. I call football for a team that never passed. Maybe that was part of it too. They ran the triple option and they never attempted passing.
God, that's worse. That's worse.
Off tackle to the
That's
right.
worse than calling baseball games. But speaking of opera singers, Zolak.
That's how my voice lessons. Go ahead.
That's
So
good.
your first year in New England, Zolak probably gave us the greatest soundbite we've heard in New England, the unicorns and show ponies. When did you learn to kind of let him just go off in his ridiculous shit he wants to spew and kind of reel him back in?
Well, there's no reeling him back in.
That was the answer. I know that was the answer to that
You
question.
just let him go. It works. And I think in retrospect too, guys, I think it helped me a lot. Nobody here really knew who I was. I'm following a legend. There's no way to replace Gil. There's no way to, if I had come in and we tried to be Gil and Gino, we would have failed miserably, right? If we had a broadcast that was very similar, where the play-by-play guy was just nuts and bolts, which I pretty much am, and the color analyst was more subdued the way Gino was, people would say, these guys, they're not Gil and Gino, and they're trying to sound like them, and it's not very good. Now people listen and they say, well, they're not Gil and Gino, they're not nearly as good, but they got a different style.
I like you guys better. It's more exciting, and I like Zolak will rip the team whenever he has a chance when they're bad. Like Gil and Gino never did that. It was all ha ha roo roo.
Yeah, Zoe's passionate. He first of all, he sees the game like a quarterback, right? So from an analyst standpoint, he's very good at breaking down the X's and O's live, not on replay, the way that a TV analyst does.
Too many hits to the head.
He's been doing a lot of the stuff Tony Romo gets credit for since I started working with him. And then he brings the passion of someone who really, really loves the team, but also is honest. And you're right. And he'll rip players. He'll criticize. He criticized Tom Brady. If Tom Brady made a bad throw or poor decision, he'd say something like, "I don't know what he's thinking there."
Yeah.
But the thing I think with both of us is, he jokes about it. His late father used to give him a piece of advice every game before the broadcast started. Don't step on Bob. Don't step on Bob. And Zoe would, talk about it, say it under his breath. Don't step on Bob. And but I don't think it would work well if he tried to hold back. And even for me, we complement one another because I am pretty vanilla. I know that. And he brings the personality, the humor, the over-the-top reactions, like after the Ken Bell Tompkins sketch, the broadcast. And I think it does. I think it appeals to a different audience maybe than in the past, maybe a larger audience, you could say, with young people that listen to the station now, and the numbers, the 95 pulls in. It's kind of an extension of the station's success locally here in Boston. But it works. It's worked well for 8 years and hopefully now in the 9th.
Yeah.
And so just slugging beers and singing into the crowd. I mean, that just brings all the young kids in.
Well, that's what helped.
That is the amazing thing about it. That this is all, as far as I know, it's happening organically now. Maybe I don't know if there's anything that's involved before the games, but this is all pre-post game.
Yeah.
They're the only spirits are just the good positive vibes that he brings into the booth during the game.
Yeah. We'll keep it all on the board. That's fine.
It's a family environment in the booth. His
absolutely
son is sitting next to him in the booth.
Well, that's why. I mean, that's why it works, because he's got that goofball mentality. But then when he talks football, it's like, oh my, he knows what the hell he's talking about for sure.
Yeah.
And then you can bring us back down to, okay, here's what's actually happening, and here's Zoe's world, here's the football game, and yeah, I mean, I think that you guys have an immense success because of your your partnership, and also you had a hell of a team to be calling for a few years there, and so. We don't want to take you forever, but I do have to touch on the Brady and Bill thing. And did you and Zoe feel like calling the game, you were a child of divorce there? Because every game, it's all hovering over every game. Even if Brady's not in the stadium, Belichick's obviously there. You're looking at Cam Newton under center, struggling, let's call it. And, and the whole world is going, Jesus, if they just paid him, Brady could have been there, and maybe we can, be doing better. So we're just curious to see your kind of standing on that and what it was like going through a year of that.
It's really like, once you start calling a game, for me, now I can't speak for Zoe on this, but for me, it never really entered my mind once we started calling the game, because you're so focused on not screwing it up.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the motivation for me, to don't F this up. And when the team is struggling,
sounds familiar.
The frustration last year too. I mean, it was such a strange year, honestly, guys. For me, part of the approach to last year was get through the year, do the best that you can under the circumstances. There are no fans for the home games. We were calling the road games from Gillette off TVs. Such a strange experience. We're going in there at night for the game in Seattle, 3,000 miles away. We're calling a game surrounded by snowbanks at Gillette while the Patriots are playing in Miami or in Southern California against the Rams and the Chargers. In one of those games, they're blowing out the other team, and the other game, they're getting blown out. And we didn't have a lot of offensive highlights. We didn't have, a lot of games where you even felt like, even if the game was close, where you really felt they were going to pull it out in the end. The way you always did previously, regardless of the circumstances. And so I think for me, that I never thought in those moments about the Brady Belichick dynamic, but of course you can't help but think about it between games. That's all we've heard about the last couple of years. And even, the Tom's last season, I never really thought about the door opening and him walking out until the night of the Titans game. There was a sense too, that because that season wound down, and it goes back to the Philadelphia game. There was a sense that it's been a good year.
We were at that game.
Defense, but you guys saw it. I mean, they really struggled offensively.
Could score a touchdown. Julian Edelman had the only touchdown pass.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
We held hands in the stands and prayed Nick Folk would make the extra point.
While we're getting French fries thrown at us.
Not in Philly, no. Other fans are kind to you then.
They're actually pretty nice. They're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's
too bad.
A good sports fan. It's a good sports town.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I just even like that season after the Philadelphia game, there was a resignation. And Brady, of course, got a lot of criticism locally on sports talk radio because of his demeanor.
Deserved.
Some of it was deserved, but I think also there was a resignation in his part. And I think you realize, the margin for error for this team is so small.
Right.
They don't have enough.
Someone robbing the compound there, Bobby?
Oh, they're coming after you now.
They've locked in on the signal.
Come and get me.
Anyway, just the point being that it wasn't until the last game between the Pats and the Titans, and there was the sense by the time they played that game that this could be it.
Yeah.
And I remember going down on the field when Brady would run out into the corner of the ends, and I never really cared to capture that myself. I'd watch it from the booth, and then I would take a lap around the field a little bit later. But that night I wanted to be down there just in case. And I took some pictures that I had never taken before of him coming into the corner, the let's go in the end zone. And it turned out that was the last time he did it for the Pats.
Oh, he'll be doing about 5 weeks, so you can see it again.
He'll be back, absolutely. I don't think they're going to have the Jay-Z racked up, though. I would imagine that that song's no longer in the play.
Might be a little bit different. Yeah. Do you I know focusing on not fucking things up. So, and that's a good motto for anyone listening, anyone young listening. That should be all your motivation. But week 4 is a big mountain on that schedule. And, you guys are going to be calling every single play with Brady in the building there. Some of us on this panel have deemed Brady dead to us. after leaving and opening up some of his personal views and social media things and of the like. Will that be a game where you feel some pressure? Will that be a game, maybe even more for Zoe, where you'll have to maybe reel yourselves in a little bit on the Brady stuff, or do you think you'll be able to play it straight?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know how it will be. I do know that I have thought a little bit about like what do we say to open that?
Yeah, can you
have to acknowledge it.
Like the fans, I expect an overwhelming amount of cheering. I expect the stadium to be roaring for him.
A lot of Buccaneers jerseys in the stadium.
And a couple scattered boos. But I have to imagine calling the game, how much you're still an employee of you're calling a Patriots game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
How much can you really
gush over him?
Thank you, Bill. Gush over Tom Brady, especially when he's putting up 60 on the
well, I don't think
the
he's
home
going to put up 60. But regardless, I don't think we'll gush over him. I think you have to certainly touch on, and you can't even get into it too deep because there's just so much that he accomplished here.
Right.
You touch a little bit on the legacy, but then you move on to the game. And the one thing about our broadcast too is we're not on the air that much when we're not calling the play-by-play.
Right.
We each have a spot on our pregame show. We open the broadcast, which is like a 5-minute segment at most, and then we come back and it's right into the kickoff. So we really don't have a lot of time unless the game gets out of hand toward the end to get into some of the stories that, the pregame show or obviously the talk shows are going to be dealing with for weeks ahead of that. I think that the state of the team is going to determine in large part, what the mindset of the fans are and how we handle that moment. If the Patriots are going in and they're coming off, a 3-0 start or 2-1 start, people are encouraged. Maybe it's the young quarterback as opposed to Cam. Maybe it's Mac Jones. Maybe the mindset of everybody is different going into that game.
Right.
So that'll really determine it. But I have thought honestly about just the opening thoughts, how to phrase it. Because that's one game because it's probably going to be his last game here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say probably. I mean, with Brady, it's always tentative.
Yeah, right.
This is a cliff.
Another 8 years.
Yeah, so I have thought about that, but we'll see when that game comes. I think the one thing I will do is try to keep it in perspective. It's a week 4 game. I know it sounds trite, and you're going to hear that from players and coaches, but that's what it is.
No,
if the Patriots lose that game,
everyone expects them to lose the game. That's not the pressure, Bob. The pressure actually is on you because we will be tuning in. It will be one of these moments where you'll have the ears of New England and Brady will take the field and it'll be, like the Masters and, it'll be this hush moment and, what do they have to say? What do we have to, what is the voiceover here narrative of Tom Brady coming back to Gillette? It's a little pressure.
Here's where I think you heed the words of somebody like Vin Scully, who I think is the greatest broadcaster of all time, or at least the greatest baseball announcer of all time. There's nothing you can say in a moment like that can convey what the crowd does.
Yeah,
particularly after an exciting moment. Now, in our case, there's a lot of screaming and shouting after an exciting moment for the Pats. But I think in that case, you try to lay out and you mentioned Brady off the sideline or whatever. Here comes Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and you let the fans provide the reaction, and that's maybe the best commentary of all.
You're going to slip up and say Patriots and Brady. Okay, I'm already telling you right now.
Zolak's just going to be not to be too inappropriate.
He's going to be crying. He's going to be crying. Oh yeah,
just bawling his eyes out. Especially, if I think we all understand Zolak's standing on Cam Newton as the quarterback, and he was less than thrilled with Cam Newton's performance last year, let's call it. And I think listening to him on the radio, open to now Cam and obviously Mac Jones in the quarterback competition. The news today, Cam Newton going to miss 5 days because of COVID protocols. We just did a show before this. I had my opinions. They were louder than what I'm talking at this level right now. But I guess my question to you, Bob, is with this quarterback competition and being in camp now, has there been a different vibe, a feeling around the team? Do you think that this really hurts Cam Newton, or are you expecting to be calling game 1 with him under center?
I've been in the mindset, and probably in the minority here, where I do believe that there's been a competition, and that the competition isn't over. That I think as much as Bill and Josh have said that Cam's our starter for now, as they reiterated each in the last couple of days. Josh yesterday, Bill today. They've also made it clear that you have to reestablish yourself, et cetera. And as Bill said today, there really are two ways you can lose your position, your standing. And one is, to be outplayed in essence, and the other is to be unavailable. And obviously, when we heard those words, we didn't know that Cam was unavailable until we went out to practice today and didn't see him out there. I talked about this with Country Rich a couple of weeks ago about this possible scenario. And I think it's one that not only we're going through right now with this team, but we may go through again and again and again,
right?
Because of the protocols in the league. I mean, it's clear it's personal choice, as players have stated, but along with that choice, what the NFL protocols are, and you choose either to get vaccinated or not to get vaccinated, and deal with all of the different restrictions that are in place as an unvaccinated player. And in particular, in the quarterback position, that puts you at risk of being not only unavailable, but really unaccountable to your teammates. So I think that this could be a pretty big development. And I think Mac Jones today, and I know a lot of the reports cite the statistics, I thought today was a positive step for him, all things considered, because number one, he was going against ones with ones. The Patriots defense, I thought, was better today than any of the defenses they've seen, even Washington in the first preseason game, or the Eagles, certainly with all their backups the other night. And the thing he shows is that he continues to learn. I mean, he's running 2-minute offense, and he's got control. He's getting them organized at the line of scrimmage. He came back from, a difficult start today and finished strong. And you see the way that the team responds to him. Now, when people ask about the vibe of the team or your sense from the team, it's harder to tell these days because of COVID. We don't have the personal interaction with the players. It's really through Zoom only. But there's the sense that I think guys really respond well to him. We've heard a number of players, they talk about his swag, and you can see, players on the field. I mean, him relating to guys. He's gotten after some of the veterans, including Kendrick Bourne recently. But then, they're back on the same page immediately after that. So I think he's earned their respect. I think he's, accelerated his progress far beyond a typical rookie for the Patriots. Yep. Obviously, different circumstances than when Jimmy or Jacoby or even Jarrett came in behind Tom. But I think in Jones's case, you guys watched him in 2 preseason games. This is what we've seen from the start this year, where everything they've thrown at him, even when he's had some tough moments, he's bounced back, and he's been able to answer everything they've asked of him thus far. I don't know if I answered your question, but
so
I kind of feel that Cam is jeopardizing. I do feel that in a lot of ways, Cam is jeopardizing his position by the decision he made, and now the circumstances this week.
You just undermined everything I said earlier.
But again, hey, Bill, as I said, I'm probably in the minority among the people that are around the team, and I'm probably wrong about it. But
these guys aren't. They're big Mac guys. They want Mac. I don't want Cam to start. I'd rather go Mac. I just expect Cam to start. But so basically, what you're saying, Mac is the guy that could lead this team to the playoffs, and he's the guy that should be starting. Yeah.
I think
I'll take that as a yes.
Blank for yes.
Bob, is this going to make hot takes on Felger and Maz?
Cam's been better, but I do think that I think Cam's been better. I don't want to take anything away from him. I thought Cam, would come back. I thought it was a real possibility of him coming back this year. I like him for the most part. I have no reason to dislike him. I really, think he's handled things great in a lot of different ways in tough circumstances here. I think you guys get a sense of where I'm coming from and how I feel about the vaccination issue with him. But overall, I want him to do well. I think the best case scenario for Patriots fans is for both of them to play great. And when the transition occurs, that it occurs, naturally, as opposed to having to play Mac week 1 against Miami. But I don't know if that's necessarily the way it's going to shape up. I think that, Mac could earn the job. And
or Cam could lose it if he keeps missing practicing.
And that's what we all hope for. So, boom.
Well, no, I think actually, Bill, Bob, you said it right, and people just don't articulate it correctly. As fans, we have nothing against Cam Newton. We just watched him for enough time last year to not have confidence that he can produce and win. So that's why we lean towards Mac, because there's an unknown, and hopefully he can. And we don't expect Cam to. If he does, great, fantastic. Let Mac sit on the bench and learn, and we'll, he's the future, no problem. Cam Newton, go win an MVP. Let's win a Super Bowl. We're here for the laundry, but it's not the expectation, right? It's not, and so missing a week of camp when you're in a quarterback battle is tough going. I think
it's not ideal, particularly he's going to miss the first day of the joint practices with the Giants.
Yeah,
and I think this is a big week. It's also, it blunts the momentum that he had coming out of the game the other night against the Eagles. And I think the thing about Mac has shown in both preseason games that he can operate in the hurry up offense, so they can play at a different pace. Now, he did make a mistake late in the second quarter, but boy, today in practice, they worked on it, and he didn't check it down.
Right.
In a situation where he's now going to cost the team a lot of time off the clock, and he's going to have to clock it on third down, and they're going to have to punt it on fourth down the way they did in Philadelphia. So again, I think, he's somebody who's got a real good grasp of that situation for such a young quarterback. And the other part of it for me is, when they get into games, they're not going to face the Eagles playing a soft zone with their backups.
Right.
They're going to be playing against teams that are probably going to load the box again with 8-man fronts. And Cam is a better runner, and this is a team that will lean heavy on the run game. And while Cam is certainly going to be better, and he's going to have better pieces around him than last year, I don't know if it's going to be good enough for this team to ultimately, be where they want to be, where we expect them to be, and that's, in playoff contention and ultimately in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. We've taken a lot of your time, Bob. Two last questions on the team this year. But the first one is, do you expect Cam to play in the game on Sunday?
I do. I think if he's ready to go,
Chalk that one down, boys. Thank you.
I think
you heard it from this expert. Chalk it down.
Yeah, I do. I think if he's back by Thursday. Now, if he's not back by Thursday and he doesn't practice against the Giants, if there's another hiccup here or a delay, that could certainly change things. But I would expect him to play. I think that, I think a lot of it would be contingent on the number of snaps they get in the joint practices. But if he's not getting a high volume on Wednesday because he's not practicing, and then he's coming back on Thursday, I'm not so sure, they're going to fully immerse him in that practice. So I think that the only reason not to play in that third game is because you played so much in the joint practices. That's generally been Bill's approach in the past when they've had the joint practices. If Tom played a lot, like the 2 days of joints, then maybe he didn't play in the game. I think in this case, too, you got 2 weeks after the game before the season opener. Yeah. So Cam's not going to have as many snaps as they probably anticipate. They probably planned, coming out of the Eagles game, looking ahead to the week, before they got this news that he was unavailable for the next 5 days.
Sure.
What's the other position battle you've been watching at training camp? Obviously, quarterback's big story out of camp, but what's the other, what's your eye been catching? What's the big position battle?
Well, I think, the interesting thing to me is how many running backs they keep, and that's a good problem to have because they have so many good running backs that they're loaded there. Offensive tackle, it's unsexy, like the backup offensive tackle, but this team has needed reserve linemen to play a lot of snaps in recent years. And, I thought Justin Herron played pretty well last year, but he's had a tough go of it thus far in training camp and in the preseason games. Yadni Kajust has been impressive. The third-round pick from West Virginia hasn't played at all.
Can't stay on the field. It's a big thing.
Cunningham is a guy that, they've had on the roster for a while. So I think that's a concern. I think the wide receiver spot outside of the top three, how many receivers do they keep? Nikhil's situation obviously is complicated. Christian Wilkerson's had a nice run at times, but he's also been inconsistent catching the ball. That's a position I've thought for a while. Maybe they have to go outside the organization at some point to bring in a fourth receiver. Same thing in the secondary. I think that, with no Gilmore and with the injuries to Miles Bryant, Jonathan Jones, it exposed them a little bit in the joint practices against the Eagles at the quarterback position. Jason McCourty played a lot of snaps for this team the last few years, kind of a versatile piece, mostly corner, some safety. And I think that, that's an area that bears watching. And certainly the kicking situation. Nordine was a star in the Washington game. He was, obviously he was one of the few thumbs down players in the Philadelphia game, a really tough go of it, which was kind of his career. at Michigan.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, right, Bob? Like that has carried on from him from Michigan. If it was just one of these games and you say, oh, but you have to kind of look at his history and go, ooh, this might be a thing.
Yeah, and Folk was back at practice today coming off an injury issue. And he was a little bit up and down. He's been very reliable for the most part for the Pats the last 2 years. Missed his first 2 field goals last year, then made 26 in a row. Yeah. But, that's an area that, again, I think that game on Sunday night, or at least the practices the next couple of days, may determine, whether they make a change there with Quinn or they look outside the organization. The Giants have a kicker who's been terrific, Santoso, thus far in the preseason, and he's not going to make their team. Graham Gano is going to be their kicker. They're looking to trade him. So who knows in the joint practices if Quinn continues this roller coaster ride and Nick just isn't at full strength going into the regular season.
And you could slide Nordine right onto the practice squad too, right? I don't think anyone's going to pick him up yet.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think that's, ideally for him. A lot of kickers don't come out of the college ranks and ultimately succeed, right away. The Justin Tuckers, Gus
Blankenship,
stretch, his first year. Vinatieri had to go to Europe. So it's great, the greatest kicker of all time. So a lot of these guys, do struggle for a little while. And they bounce around a little bit before they finally,
find their way. Well, we might have broken a little bit of news there with the Giants kicker. We'll keep an eye on him. Per Bob Socci could be the new.
They made a trade with Cleveland already. They just played the Browns. And they practiced with the Browns, and I guess Cleveland put their kicker on IR today. So I'm just throwing that up. That's just a complete.
We'll keep an eye on it. Yeah. No, I just as from outsiders watching it, I think that's right. We were curious about N'Keal Harry and what they're going to do in the secondary, and Belichick's never one to be worried about making moves, especially it seems like late in his career. So should be interesting. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. This has been
great time,
an awesome time talking football, and we'll look forward to the games this year. Go Pats!
Go Pats! You guys are musicians?
Just not these guys.
Okay. All right.
I've played a little. I'm actually in DC. Been here for about 10 years and had a little band in DC. We played some rock and roll.
You know what? I noticed the 301 area code. What's the band's name? When I'm back in
Buffalo 40.
Buffalo 40.
Yeah, we're on Spotify. Give it a listen.
I'm gonna give you guys a try.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And actually, we should give the Gridiron and Beyond a try. I've been listening to a couple episodes of that.
You know what? It's actually going to be on hiatus for a while. We're gonna shut it down, I think, during the season, and then pick it up again after the season. So
nice. Well, yeah, it's been a fun listen.
Archives are still there on 985thesportshub.com.
They're always around. Okay, well, we're swapping some creative juices here. That's good.
Awesome, guys.
All right, Bob. Thanks so much. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. Appreciate the time.
Hey, guys, my pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye, guys. Take care.
You too.
All right, guys, I'm out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm out of get rid. See ya.
Oh, God, he was one of those awkward goodbye guys.
And no, that's on me. It takes 4 clicks to get someone out of Zoom, and I always say bye before setting it up. I've successfully done it once, and it was with Amanda Casey, and she bounced before I could actually do it.
Yeah, that was her.
0.6 seconds.
All right, guys, bye.
The one attractive woman we have on this show, and she got out of there in.
We had a couple random and epic 9s and 10s.
No offense to the rest of the women we've interviewed. There've been a couple.
Dolls.
Yeah, wonderful women, also attractive. That was just a joke. But the hottest one of all was Hot Take Bob Socci. That was fun. Rambling Rob over there. I knew that I've listened to a lot of interviews. Obviously, he's on the radio. I knew he was going to be long-winded. We got through, I don't know, a third of our questions.
If that.
I don't even think, yeah.
Dude, what's he on Felger and Maz to give him like 10 minutes on a Friday? Because I think
he gets to one question. Felger always gives him shit. He's like, Bob, I got to one question. But we went through, I had those segments of questions. He answered 3 of them through one. So he's thorough. He's obviously he's good at what he does. He calls games for the New England Patriots. He's hitting on all the hot topics before we can ask him. But I knew it was going that way from the jump. Old Bobby. Hey. Anyone who says they don't like Bob Socci, I don't know what's wrong with you. People like that are just like
Losers.
generally kind of nice in their heart. Like probably don't know how to be mean.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Hard
Very
not
good
to
dude.
like.
He's very passionate about his job too, which is great.
Yeah, extremely passionate. The motivation of not fucking up is the strongest motivation that you can have.
Especially when you got Zoe next to you. Please,
Yeah.
God, don't fuck up. And then you look to your right and you got that guy. It's like, oh, fuck.
It's just
You don't
Steve
need to
Austin-
fuck up next
Steve
to
Austin,
him.
like 2 mil lights in his throat while Kendrick Tompkins.
Ripping butts.